Can you believe the groom's brother only graduated middle school? What a disgrace,
said loudmouthed Kirk. Hearing his words, sitting next to him, Doug and the groom, Max, showed expressions of anger. In response to those two, I was not just angry, but also dumbfounded. Certainly, unlike the two excellent individuals, I don't have an educational background to boast about. However, there's no reason for me to be laughed at like this in front of so many people.
Who's really the disgrace here?
At that moment, the bride, Ray, stood up. She approached Kirk with firm steps, took the microphone from his hand. Kirk protested, but she ignored him and glared.
Don't say disrespectful things about John. Unlike you, John is a loving person.
John. Did you just say John?
Kirk's expression changed as soon as my name was mentioned. Then, he stared directly at my face.
No way, are you, John Hills?
Kirk turns pale and asks me a question. From his expression, you could tell he couldn't believe it. To him, I smiled. My apologies for not introducing myself. I am John Hills. I'm a 41-year-old running a factory. I have a younger brother named Max, who is 13 years younger than me. Max has always been serious, and ever since he was young, he's the type to steadily work hard. Max doesn't remember our parents' faces.
What? Dad and Mom?
Our parents died in a car accident when Max was just 3 and went to heaven. It was such a sudden goodbye. There was no time to grieve, as we were busy with the funeral.
So what's gonna happen to those kids?
What followed was our relatives shuffling us brothers around, not wanting to take us in. Both sets of grandparents had already passed away, and each parent was an only child. No relatives wanted to take in me in the prime of my growth spurt, or Max, who was just starting kindergarten. Maybe it would be better to just go to a facility. But
John.
clinging to me and crying, Max and I faced the possibility of being torn apart. Still, it seemed impossible for me, just starting high school, to make it alone with Max. Because of this, I was deeply conflicted.
If it's okay, could I take them in?
At that time, a distant relative, Doug, reached out to us. He had lost his wife and was living alone.
I'm getting tired of being alone.
With those words, Doug decided to take us in together. Although we moved, we were able to lead a peaceful life.
Are you sure this is okay? There's enough saved up for you to go to college.
It's fine. I'll be using that money for my brother's needs now.
Afterward, I chose to drop out of high school to work. I would need a lot of money for Max to grow up. I didn't want to be a burden just by myself. Luckily, there was a factory within walking distance, and I managed to get a job there.
It's a big help having a young guy join us.
The people at the factory were kind, and although there were tough times, we somehow made it through. Every day, I fought hard to protect Max. 25 years have passed since Doug took us in.
Boss, I finished inspecting the machinery.
Oh, thanks. I came to be in charge of the factory, and all the employees trusted me. And Max.
Man, I'm tired. They all underestimate me because I'm young.
That sounds tough.
Well, yeah. But I have a lot of things I want to do, so I want to keep pushing forward.
Incredibly, he had become a government official. Max, who grew up straight and true, adoring his foster father Doug. Being young, it seems hard to be taken seriously, but my brother Max seems to be doing his best.
Hey, John, got a sec?
Yeah, sure.
Actually, there's a matchmaking proposal for Max.
One day, Doug approached me. Apparently, a friend of his wanted to introduce a girl from his family to Max. I personally don't think much of it. I have no desire to marry, and Doug and Max are enough family for me. By contrast, Max is still in his 20s. I had asked if he had a girlfriend recently.
I'd like one, but no. I'm too busy with work.
That's what he said. So, if matchmaking could make Max happy, I think it's a good idea. However, the fact that Doug is bringing this up to me must mean something. Is there something about the girl's family?
Actually, I've heard not so great things about them.
Her father is known for aggressively securing contracts as a director in a major company. Her mother is supposedly a doctor, but she's always at work and rarely home, or so the rumors go.
And the girl herself, she's quite spoiled, and it's said she just manipulates her boyfriends just to dump them eventually.
Hearing such rumors, I can somewhat understand what Doug means. Even I would hesitate to bring Max to meet her.
Including those rumors, when I mentioned the matchmaking to Max, he said, since it's a good opportunity, I'll meet her. I plan to be there, but what about you?
Upon hearing that, I checked my schedule. However, I couldn't rearrange things, so I decided to leave it to Doug. Later, Doug informed me that after the meeting, the two started dating. Hearing that, I decided to meet with Max. Max, can we meet up soon?
Yeah, of course. I was actually hoping to see you too.
It turns out Max was also trying to meet me, and we managed to arrange a meal together. When I asked about that matchmaking,
Actually, I got engaged to her.
what? You're already engaged?
Well, yeah.
When I asked in surprise, Max just gave a wry smile. You know about those rumors, right?
Yeah, Doug told me. I decided knowing all that.
Max said this as he looked me straight in the eye. And I could feel his resolve. But I couldn't help feeling anxious, wondering if he was being deceived, and I fell silent.
It's okay.
Huh?
I want you to trust me.
Hearing that, I nodded. Then, Max's expression softened.
Actually, I want you to meet her. Do you still have time after this?
I had been hoping to meet her before the wedding as well. So, I agreed right away.
Nice to meet you. My name is Ray.
She arrived a few minutes later. Contrary to the rumors, she was quiet. There was no hint of pretense about her, and when Max spoke to her, she would smile gently, giving off the impression of a demure woman.
Actually, I have something I want to discuss with you, John.
At that point, I was told a certain story. Surprised by the content, I agreed to help.
Thank you very much.
Saying that, she looked at me earnestly, indeed the opposite of what the rumors had suggested. Please take good care of my brother. Max can be a bit oblivious at times. If anything comes up, please consult with me. I'll give him a good talking to.
What's that supposed to mean?
Max laughed at my words. Triggered by that, Ray smiled modestly, and Max looked at her with a tender gaze. Soon after, we planned a meetup between both families. I had originally planned to attend.
Boss, the machine is.
There was a machine malfunction at the factory. Dealing with that and making amends meant I had to run around a lot. Because of this, I couldn't attend the meetup. As a result, I haven't been able to meet the other family until the wedding. Isn't that Kirk Hart? I had only heard the name from Max and the others, but it rang a bell for me too. I thought there might be some trouble as the wedding day approached. The wedding itself went smoothly. The problem arose during the bride's father's speech.
The groom, Max, is a young bureaucrat and a fine man.
The speech was about Max, and it mentioned his adoptive father, Doug, who was also a distinguished bureaucrat.
The only stain in this outstanding family is the presence of a high school dropout, the groom's brother. He's a drag on his talented younger brother.
Suddenly, he started talking about me like that. Those words changed the atmosphere of the venue.
I'm a top manager at a major corporation. My wife is a doctor. Doug was also an outstanding bureaucrat. And yet, the groom's brother is a high school dropout. A disgrace to the family.
Kirk said loudly, laughing. At his words, Doug sitting next to me and the groom Max showed expressions of anger. Instead of anger, I was simply dumbfounded. It's true that unlike the accomplished two, I don't have an impressive educational background to boast about. However, there was no reason for me to be laughed at in front of everyone like this.
Who should really be ashamed here?
At that moment, the bride, Ray, stood up. She marched up to Kirk, snatched the microphone from his hand. Kirk began to protest, but she glared at him, ignoring his objections.
Don't say such disrespectful things about John. Unlike you, John is a loving person.
John. Did you just say John?
As soon as my name was mentioned, Kirk's expression changed. He then looked at me intently.
You can't be John Hells, can you?
Turning pale, Kirk addressed me. From his expression, it was clear he couldn't believe it. To that, I responded with a smile. I should have introduced myself earlier. I'm John Hills, the manager of the Oscar factory. The room buzzed at my introduction. The Oscar factory, which I manage, is a large plant that has also expanded internationally.
Manager of Oscar Factory. You're the one who was on TV for that patent thing, right?
Indeed. The reason I was put in charge of the factory was because I had developed a patented product. Thanks to that, the already large factory grew even larger and successfully expanded overseas. Apparently, my reputation had spread, leading to media requests and TV appearances. So, some people might recognize me. With such achievements, I am scheduled to be promoted to an executive position soon. Oh, that reminds me. As I said that and looked at Kirk, he flinched. It seemed he realized what I was about to say. Your company wants to use my patented products, right? I heard from the sales team that you tried to force a contract using your name.
I'm so sorry. I had no idea it was you.
He immediately apologized. He has the sense to understand, so he really should be more careful with what he says and does. I smiled at him. I haven't given you an answer yet. I don't want to make a deal with someone like you, so I'll make sure to tell our CEO to forget this conversation ever happened.
What? Please reconsider.
Kirk was desperate, trying to cling to any hope. I then gave him a cold look. I'm the family disgrace, right? So you wouldn't want anything to do with me, would you?
That's not. I take back what I said earlier. From now on, as family, let's work together.
Unfortunately, I have no intention of becoming family with you. After saying that, I turned my gaze to Ray. She nodded firmly and took the microphone back. Now, it was her turn. I quietly shifted to a watching stance.
Ladies and gentlemen gathered here, I am very sorry for causing such a disturbance.
As Ray began to speak, all eyes in the venue turned to her.
I have always obeyed my father. If I didn't, he would hit me. My mother would say she's too busy with work to listen to me.
At her words, suspicious glances were cast toward her parents. Both of them faltered.
My father has introduced me to men saying, "This is your boyfriend starting today," several times. But all these men were just sons of influential people, and they were terrible.
The men Kirk introduced her to were all cheaters or leeches, or the type to lay a hand on a woman. Through some strategy, she managed to break away from them, but she was then labeled as a spoiled girl by those around her.
I am cutting ties with my parents today, who see me only as a tool. Therefore, John, you will not become part of their family either.
Ray declared this boldly. What I had heard about her parents when I met with Max recently was true to their nature. A father who would quickly raise his hand if displeased. A mother who used her work as an excuse to ignore this behavior and only paid attention to her when it was time to treat injuries.
To embarrass such parents in front of many people, that's why we held this wedding today.
Ray confessed this in front of the crowd. Next to her, Max stood by her side. Max heard her plan during their arranged meeting and quickly agreed to an engagement to support her.
As a human being, I cannot forgive the two of you. That's why I helped this time.
Saying this, Max put his arm around Ray's shoulder. From his expression, I could tell what Max was feeling. With Max's cold gaze and the disapproving looks from the others, the two felt clearly uncomfortable and averted their eyes. Watching this, Doug quietly stood up.
I now understand what kind of people you are. Trying to use my son Max and insulting John. I will never forgive you.
At these words, Kirk collapsed to his knees. The mother turned pale as well, and Ray's plan for revenge was fulfilled.
It's over.
Seeing this, she burst into tears. Max comforted Ray, while Doug instructed the staff to escort the two out. After they left, Max stood in front of Ray.
I truly love you. That's why I want to marry you.
At Max's words, she was visibly shocked and froze. Indeed, Max had already loved her deeply. From the way Max looked and moved around Ray, I had sensed it somehow.
Am I really good enough for you?
You are the one I want.
At his words, she cried again. Both Max and Ray, who had not received love from their parents, seemed to have been drawn to each other because of their similar circumstances.
I don't remember receiving love from my parents. But I received a lot of love from my brother and Doug. Now, I want to give that love to you.
I haven't received love either. So, honestly, both being loved and loving are scary to me. But I feel it will be all right with you, Max.
Their words prompted applause from those around them. Amidst the applause, Max and Ray, a bit embarrassed, looked genuinely happy.
John and Doug, thank you so much for raising me.
At that moment, Max expressed his gratitude to us. Surprised by his words, I was momentarily speechless.
Thanks to the two of you, I am who I am today. You are my family to be proud of.
Max's words made me and Doug both almost cry. Max smiled at us like a child who had succeeded in a prank. Then, after the wedding, the two of them left for their honeymoon. I'll have everything settled by the time you return, I said as I saw them off and headed to the factory.
Please, make a contract with us.
There was Kirk, kneeling in front of the factory. The employees looked at him with suspicion.
If I can secure a contract with you,
He was likely facing termination if things continued as they were. Seeing his desperate expression, I called the police about a suspicious person. A few minutes later,
Listen to me.
Kirk was shouting as he was taken away by the police, always causing a ruckus to the end. With this, he wouldn't be able to show his face around us ever again. If he lost the contract and was involved in a police incident, his company would surely fire him. Doug has already used his connections to spread the word about what happened, making it hopeless for Kirk to find employment in this area. Anyone who harms my family will not be forgiven. Muttering this, I headed towards the factory.
Hey, boss. There was a strange guy here just now.
As I showed up, employees began to approach me one after another. Some of them even saved footage of Kirk. I'm sorry for the concern. I'll make arrangements so he won't appear here again.
Typical of you, boss. Quick to handle things.
My words brought relieved smiles to their faces. I then received records that could be used for a case of business interference. With this, I could sue if necessary. To protect the peace of mind of my trusting employees, I decided to take immediate action. And as I expected, Kirk was fired. I also spread the word that he was the person who had caused trouble for my sister-in-law. Moreover, I mentioned that I wouldn't want to contract with anyone who would employ such a person. There are many companies that want to contract with our factory. It's unlikely that any of these companies would hire him, and those that had agreements with him might reconsider employing him due to the potential risks. Our patented products are that superior.
Apparently, his mother was also kicked out of the hospital.
A doctor, scrutinized by both a former and a current bureaucrat. The hospital probably didn't want to deal with such a doctor. Both parents lost their jobs and after a big fight, ended up divorcing. And the two of them.
According to the private investigator I hired, it seems they went back to their parents' homes. However, when their actions came to light, they were quickly turned away.
Doug explained that the story of the two had spread across their respective industries. As a result, they couldn't find employment anywhere and were barely making ends meet with odd jobs. Now it's their turn to suffer. Thank you for your help. I thanked Doug for spreading the word all over the place. He smiled warmly.
I'm really glad I took you guys in.
He began to speak. It was the first time I heard him express these feelings.
When my wife passed away from illness, I even considered following her. But then I heard about you guys and decided to take you in.
Doug.
Ever since you guys came to our home, I've been busy enough to finally put my memories of my wife to rest as happy memories. Thank you for becoming my sons.
That should be my line. Thinking that, I look straight at Doug. I should be the one thanking you for making us your children. Thanks, Dad. At my words, he smiled. By the time Max and Ray returned, we no longer heard anything about Kirk and his associates. It seems that both Max and Ray are living peacefully. Perhaps thanks to the environment we've created. What? Pregnant?
Yeah. I'm going to be a dad.
Ray has got pregnant.
John and Doug pushed those people out thoroughly, which is why we could have this baby. I can't thank you two enough.
Ray said with a genuinely happy smile. Seeing her smile, we all felt relieved. We'll support you as much as we can. I've asked for advice from many people for this. Ray doesn't have a place to go for a hometown maternity stay. So, we decided to support her. When I consulted with the employees, Nurturing Women offered various pieces of advice. During that time,
You've got to do your best for your cute nephew or niece, future president.
they said, patting me on the back. By the way, I was recently promoted to an executive position, and the president has told me that I'm the successor. I'm working hard every day to live up to those expectations. Hold on, Doug, it's too early for baby clothes. We don't even know the gender yet.
Oh, I just can't wait for my grandchild.
Doug is already head over heels for his grandchild, who hasn't even been born yet. Everyone laughed at that. I will strive to keep these smiles. I promised myself.